Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sports of the Day is still on NCAA Football 2003. And we're going to look at my trophy room here. I started midway through the last game. Now, rivalry trophies we currently have are Paul Bunyan's Axe and the Golden Boot, which is Minnesota versus Wisconsin and, I believe, Louisiana State and Arkansas. What I'm going to go for here is, well, let's just find something. Old Brand. Who's MSU? Is that Michigan State? Huh. Does Michigan play for any? Jeweled Shillelagh. I like that. How about the Black Diamond Trophy? I believe this actually to be... I have a funny story about this one, weirdly enough. Actually, neat thing you can do is you can just go to Rivalry Game and select that. So if I go to the Big East, I don't want to be them, though. Or I do want to go... Oh, man, this is 2002. So if I look in the Big East, who am I going to find? But Virginia. Or Virginia Tech, sorry. So we'll be playing in the Battle for the Black Diamond Trophy. At Virginia Tech, of course. You know what? Let's shake things up in my otherwise boring life. I'll be the away team this time. I will be disappointing a group of home fans. Isn't that fun? I do have a bit of an interesting story about this one. I first played this game 2002 when it came out. I played it on the GameCube. And I remember looking at the trophy case and just going through the names of the trophies and imagining what they would look like, because I never played it enough to... Also, I love how my console very clearly cannot handle the fog effect there. Anyway, and I had never won a trophy. I had been playing it for probably 2 or 3 months. Never had beat... I had maybe won like 4 or 5 games out of the 30 I had played, because I was just not good at video games at that point. Not that I'm good at video games now, but I was much, much worse than I am now. Anyway, I looked through it, and I was like, okay, I just want to have a trophy in that trophy case, somehow, some way. I don't know how I'm going to get it, I don't know where I'm going to get it from, so I just went through all the rivalry games and saw which one was between a good team and a bad team, and this was the one game where I saw Virginia Tech, they're ranked like 14th, and then West Virginia, they're unranked. And I think this is a game I could win at the age of 8, and I remember the score of that game was like 7-0, and it was like a 2-minute quarter game, but it was the trophy, and it was the only trophy I won when I originally played NCAA Football 2003. I wonder if I have that on a memory card somewhere. I doubt it, because I would format my memory cards all the time because I was stupid, and I wanted to create more room for more like Madden franchise modes that I never completed, but... I've been playing games like this pretty much my entire life, and it took me... It was my freshman year in college. I was 18 years old. The first time I ever played a playoff game in a Madden game. Because I had such a short attention span with that season mode, or the franchise mode or whatever, that I just never could get through a full 16-game season. I've played multiple full seasons in NCAA games. In '05... Pretty much any NCAA game I've played through a full season. Outside of 2006, I never finished a full season because I had that on the Xbox around the time my Xbox was breaking down, so I never got to the end of a season. And then I think I never played '09 or '10, but just about every other one that was released in the modern era I've played at least through one full season of. Just to kind of pad my resume and show you guys how good I am at video games, I will now list... I've won championships, national championships, in NCAA 2002, 2005, and 2008, and 2007. No, just 2008. I did not in 2007. And then in 14, the most recent one. I'm just bragging about myself. This is how cool I am. I'm sure everybody loves me. Love West Virginia's field here. It's a nice, not quite grass color. It's a... Nice! I thought we had him sacked, but... Forcing him to throw into the ground is also good. Matters not on a third down. So now I have the attempt to run a punt return back. Yeah, I might actually be able to get this one. Or nope, okay. Probably should have called the fair catch there. Didn't go for it just because I don't know why I didn't go for it. Whenever you start out with the team, the play I like to run first is the option to figure out if the quarterback is good at the option. And the quarterback's pretty fast, so that's good. I need to think of a good name for this series. Call it like Trophy Dash or something. Get people to think it's something else. Be like, oh yeah, he'll be looking for PS3, trophies, right? No, I'm just looking for rivalry trophies in NCAA Football 2003 for the Xbox, obviously. I originally played this game on the GameCube. I think I said that. What I would do is I would pretty much just pick random exhibition games and play through those. I remember, no, actually, one thing I did used to do is I remember there was a contest in Nintendo Power. It was like their like showcase, their player showcase or whatever. And one of the things you could do is it was like the specific contest they were going for was NCAA Football 2003. How many Dynasty trophies can you win? And so I just went and picked the best team in every conference. And I didn't know how to actually enter in the contest. I just wanted to see if I could beat the people in the magazine. And I just simulated like 6 years. And it was really interesting to see how like I won, however many, probably like 7 or 8 conference championships, then a couple of national championships, and one player won the Heisman Trophy my first year. And it got progressively fewer and fewer as the time went on. It was just interesting to see how college football would change without me directly impacting any of it. My just theoretically being in control of it, having computer-controlled teams get better and get worse, and then you see just random stuff like that. I always like how just kind of fluke seasons will happen in the Dynasty, because, I mean, they simulate all the other games. You don't know what's happening. So when you get to the bowl season, I remember one season played in 2004, there were no undefeated teams, except for one, and it was Navy. And they went to the Sugar Bowl, and they played Florida, I think. It was some power team, and they lost like 70-7. But they were the only team that was undefeated up until the bowl season, so they got into a bowl game. I haven't even been paying attention to this game. I did that again. You know what I'm doing is I'm looking at the stream I have on my computer, and I'm watching it happen, and once that play starts, my brain's like, oh shit, the play's starting, and then I run off sides. So I'm just gonna turn that away from me. I haven't been reading the chat anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but... No, damn, okay. Here I'm going to blitz. I don't typically blitz out of whatever package this is, because I don't use whichever package this is. I believe this is the nickel. I could be wrong. It could be the dime. Just know that it's... Oh, wow. And whoever this guy is just going to take off. That was a dime. Okay, well, I never use the dime. Typically use 3-4. The Mountaineers seem to be running it up on me. So. Offsides here? I don't know. Nice. Okay. Okay, we'll build off of that. I played so much 2005, and there were plays in 2005 that I knew, I pretty much without fail could get to the quarterback and sack them. Nice. Look at that. That was a good hit. That wasn't even me. I'm going to go to the instant replay there because I'm so proud of that hit. Boom. Rest in peace. There was a really good hit at the Oklahoma State game the other day. Or the KU was playing Oklahoma State, where it ended up being a complete pass, but the guy from Oklahoma State turned around to catch it, and somebody from KU just came up right in front of him and just leveled him. It was crazy. That was a good open field tackle. Okay. What if I try to block this? Doesn't matter. They're going for a field goal, so I guess it's a good thing I'm trying to block this. However, maybe we can get a kick 6 going here. What if I could do that? That's going to be long enough, though. No. Well, it hit my guy, so... Yes, let's... I always used to have a guy run back. I didn't know how football worked, and I would just have him stand in front of the goalpost and make him, jump if it got close to the goalpost to try and knock it down from going in. Like I was trying to rob a home run. It never worked. We're going to start with the pass, which is a bad idea, which is why I'm going to audible to a run. Very proud of my blocker there, who saw the safety coming and then promptly darted off into the other direction. Thus is circa 2002 artificial intelligence. The option seemed to have worked earlier. Or did it? No, it didn't. I believe I fumbled. There we go. Yeah, oh man, that would have been great. If he had caught that in stride and just kept going, that would have been amazing. It didn't work. Let's go to the fullback here. Seeing as they're shifting right into the direction I'm running. Okay. It is weird to think, in the year 2014, that this is a game between, in 2002, this was a game between two conference opponents in the Big East. As it really, as I like to think of it. There's a part of my mind that still considers these both to be Big East teams. When obviously, the Virginia Tech's in the ACC, West Virginia's in the Big 12 now. It was pretty weird going to a football game last year that was a conference game and seeing West Virginia. When for so many years, they were teams that were in the region. I remember specifically last year, the West Virginia game, there weren't that many West Virginia fans. Typically, especially at KU, opposing fans tend to get into the stadium because we're pretty friendly, first of all, towards opposing fans. We're relatively cheap, and then not that many KU fans show up anyway. We never sell out, so... So yeah, I've been to games this year. Central Michigan had a really big contingency of fans. Texas had a smaller amount of fans than I thought, but, Oklahoma State last weekend had a lot of fans. Southeastern Missouri State had a bunch of fans, too. What if my quarterback could block for me? Yeah, nice. But anyway, it was weird seeing West Virginia because it wasn't that hard for me to think, like, okay, TCU's in the conference, because Baylor had been in the conference for so long. And, you know, I just kind of, you know, Texas, that's not that weird. But West Virginia just feels like another world away. And how are they going to have a rivalry with somebody in the Big 12? You know, are they going to really have a rivalry with anyone in the Big 12? How is that going to develop? Because it's certainly not going to be the way that so many other, especially knowing how the Big 12 works, or worked for such a long time, how those rivalries developed. I mean, the biggest rivalries in the Big 12, you think of like Nebraska and Oklahoma. They were the top two teams in the country certain years. You know, Kansas and Missouri had rivalries dating back to the, you know, to the beginning of both of those institutions' histories. Texas and Oklahoma are, you know, they're right on the border with each other. Just West Virginia and who, you know, TCU, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it develops and how the conference also changes, because it's the only conference currently in, you know, the Power Five, as it's called, that doesn't play a championship game, even though it was one of the first to adopt it, which I think is interesting. And it wasn't the first to expand. The SEC was really the first one to expand when they accepted South Carolina in the early 1990s. And Arkansas was the other one. But the Big 12 was the first one to really add just a number of teams. I mean, it took the Southwestern Conference and pretty much put it into the Big 8, leaving out SMU and TCU and Rice. But it's kind of weird how Baylor ended up in the Big 12 out of those 7 teams. You would have thought TCU was probably the favorite there, considering their football history. Or even SMU. Well, not SMU. In 1996, I wouldn't have wanted SMU. But Baylor was okay, but they weren't like an established powerhouse in 1996. How did Tech get in there? That's also weird. You can make the argument that it was all public universities that got in, because the Big 8 at that time was all public universities. But then Baylor's now public. Anyway, who cares? TCU and Baylor are in the same conference now, and apparently they hate each other. I didn't know that, but I can understand why. Because when they say, we're going to take you and put you in the big conference, but you're going to be more successful in the small conference, I can understand how that could create some resentment. Also, both being private Christian colleges. Houston was in the Southwestern Conference too, though, right? Yeah. What if they had put Houston in the Big 12? That would have been so much different. Houston's football history has been weird, though, so... They had the run and shoot offenses of the early 90s, and they had Kevin Cobb and then Case Keenum, both alliterative names. Alright, so they're punting again. It's also weird to see how Virginia Tech is the one team that I remember as, like, well, not the first team. The first team that is, like, when I remember back to 2003 to 2006, the first couple of years when I started paying attention to football, I remember Virginia Tech being consistently one of the best teams. They're not the only team that's fallen. The team that, when I think of actually a team that's fallen from, like, greatness, that would really be Miami. But Virginia Tech used to be something better than what they are now. It's interesting to see how that changed. Because they're still making BCS bowls as recently as like 2007 or 8. I remember they were in the Orange Bowl that Kansas played in. They were the opponent. That was a pretty weak year for the ACC. That was just a very weak era for the ACC. Yeah, that was a good block. I meant to juke there. Shit, oh well. Press the wrong shoulder button. Okay, this would be good. Right up the middle. Okay. Well, good. Let's see, what happened there? Huh. I don't really know what happened there. I tried to run up the middle. I thought I had a life hack there. Life hack run up the middle when they shift that way. Didn't work that way. Nice. I love how the commentators will just cue out the players. It's like, there's really no excuse for missing that catch. My dad used to play this game, and whenever the commentators would say something he didn't like, he'd be like, "Oh, shut up, Lee." In reference to Lee Corso. The NCAA football series really took a step backward when they got rid of Lee Corso in the broadcast booth, because now you just have like you don't have that weird, like, kind of eccentric personality that I think every good video game commentary team needs. Not necessarily every good commentary team, but a good video game has to have, like, the John Madden or the Lee Corso or somebody like that who can just say something weird. It's like Clark Kellogg in the 2K games right now. Kind of occupies that role. Now there's no way they're making this. Let me see if I can return this. Oh, wow, huh. Didn't even make it to the end. Okay, so there we go. Here we are in the second half. Yeah, my 2 turnovers have really hurt me. So they're both in potential scoring range. Hopefully this will be a different type of half. Now West Virginia's been different in terms of how good they've been when I compare them to my perception of Virginia Tech, because it always felt like they're out in West Virginia. I don't know very much about West Virginia. I've never been to West Virginia. I always felt there was always some sort of mystique around Virginia Tech. They always had West Virginia. They always had a pretty good team and an interesting history, and they had, Pat White in 2007, and they had, was it Pat White? Yeah. They had Geno Smith with their first year in the Big 12. I remember there was a possibility that the newcomer was going to win the Big 12. Yeah. And it turns out they're just like any other football team. But I love the way that Dana Holgerson's offense works, because when it's good, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And they play a game like they did in 2012, I think, against Baylor, where the end score was like 70-63. That was great. If I could go back in time and be at one football game, that would be the one game I would be at. It's 2012, West Virginia and Baylor. Or maybe 2013, Alabama and Auburn. But because I didn't even pay attention to that game, and then I saw, like, the stat line for it, I was just like, I missed possibly my favorite game I could have ever watched. I'm really sad that I missed, because I was at an event 2 weeks ago, Washington State, and I think it was Cal? Yeah, it was, because I remember Cal won, yeah. But the end score of that game was like 62-59 or something like that. Which was crazy, because I remember looking at the score of that at some point during the night, because I was excited for it beforehand. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good game. And it was like the end of the first quarter, and it was like 13-18. I was like, oh, okay, well, that kind of let me down. And I didn't pay attention, and then in one quarter, both teams scored 28 points, and I just scored a touchdown there, as I was telling you about that. But they scored a combined 56 points in one quarter. And I'm so sad that I didn't get to watch that live, because my mind would have just been blown. Nice. Okay. After that Notre Dame-Michigan State game, I'm happy to play a game in which my team is working the way I would like it to work. Here we go. I got the blitz coming off the right side. Which theoretically could work. Ah, no. Did a good job handling that pressure there by the West Virginia quarterback. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm like, oh, he was open there for a second. It's a shame he overthrew him. I mean, on their behalf. It's good for me that they overthrew him. Wonder what I will play next. It was good. Okay. Defense is just really working here. I'm just blitzing and it's working, unlike with that Notre Dame game. Oh, scooped up. Nice. Okay. Hey! That's good. So here I am. It's week 7 or 8 in college football. And I am at a crossroads where I don't know how my team is going to do the rest of the season. They've lost their last, 3? Yeah. They've lost their last 3 games by decreasing margins each time, which I think is a plus. So it doesn't make sense to think that they would win the next game. I don't know. I'm hesitant to believe that. But I think it makes sense to, just by the way, another touchdown, I think it makes sense to assume that they'll put up a good game. Because KU's done a couple of things that I like. First of all, they put in the junior Michael Cummings, quarterback for the Oklahoma State game, and he seemed to have a better feel, I guess, for the game than Kozar did, at least for the first 5 games. Because he was able to make plays to get them down the field, and it didn't feel like he panicked. There were a number of plays where I felt like Kozar was panicking. And, I don't know who to blame for that. The offensive, I don't want to put blame on anyone, but it feels like maybe Cummings is just a more experienced guy, and I think Kozar will get there. But Cummings feels like the guy who he's been in more games than Kozar has. He played in 2012 in a lot of close games. I think if they stick with him, they might be able to win some games with him. And I know there's a lot of people who have advocated for him, to the point where advocating for Michael Cummings has been kind of a joke around the university. But just every time they put him in, he looked better than whoever the quarterback was. In a lot of cases, not all cases, but especially in 2012 when he was under Dane Christ, there was a string of 3 or 4 games where Dane Christ got taken out in the middle of the third quarter, and Cummings led some sort of a comeback. And there was that one game Charlie Weiss tried to start both of them, where he's like, I'm going to start both Christ and Cummings today. And what ended up happening was he would play different, they would play on different plays, and there was no rhythm, because you don't start 2 quarterbacks. That doesn't make any sense to start. Ah, shit. God, that was ridiculous. And they had Heaps last year, and Heaps was supposed to be this whole new breed, and he had been at BYU, but he had wanted to play for Charlie Weiss. And he got in, and he was okay. And then as the season went on, he would get hurried, and he just couldn't do anything. He was that kind of... He needed a better offensive line than he had, I guess. Yeah. So now we have Kozard in 2014, and he's been doing well. He's made a number... I felt better about him than I did about Heaps at this point in the season last year, but I do feel like it is time to give the upperclassmen the hand. Or the hand, is that the proper... I don't know. I feel like it is proper time to give Michael Cummings a shot. Because everything... I don't know if everything he's shown us has been great, but he's shown, at least me, enough times that he's been able to keep games competitive. In the case of Oklahoma State in 2012 and Texas in 2012. And then Oklahoma State this past season. I mean, he came out and looked pretty good. He's a good runner. He has a pretty solid arm. I mean, from what he showed last week, when he threw that pass to Nick Harwell, I mean, it was I was pretty optimistic. And it feels weird to be surprised. I mean, but it feels weird to be optimistic. I remember there was a part in the game. I mean, we were tied in the fourth quarter. I mean, they lost, sure, but I mean, they were tied in the fourth quarter. That's the only time I've been able to say that against outside of the one win against West Virginia last year. That's the only time I've been able to say that, especially against a ranked opponent. I mean, that's the first time they've been tied in the fourth quarter against a ranked opponent since Baylor in 2011, which is a game I'm so glad I didn't attend, even though I should have. Because I had an essay, I had to write what was called a synthesis essay, and I had to describe some event in great detail and make the reader feel like they were there. And I was originally going to go to the KU Baylor game, and I was going to talk about how, this was a bad season, but the one thing that typically remained in the Big 12 was, oh God, please, beat Baylor. It's just Baylor. But this year it was not just Baylor, as Baylor is doing better. And Kansas is on the downside, or something like that. Because even in bad seasons, if you could beat Baylor, you were like, okay, we're not the worst. Remember in 2002, they lost to Baylor, and they were undeniably the worst team in the Big 12 that year. But in 2011, I would have died at that game because it looked like they were going to win for the first 4 quarters, and then at the end of the game, they go into overtime, and Turner Gill tries to run a 2-point conversion. And at this point, looking back at it, I'm sure I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I'm like, yeah, just go for 2, because it felt like a fluke that they were up by 21-0 at one point in that game. It felt like a fluke that they had scored in overtime in that game. So it'd be like, okay, we're never going to get another chance at scoring on on Baylor. And what do you know? They don't get the 2-point conversion, and we all go home sad. But that would have been a great essay. Instead, I just watched a fucking candle and described the candle. Yeah! Pour it on. No sportsmanship. Look at that. Rush to the outside. Turn around. Look at the opposite end of the field. Then throw forward. That's how you do it in my school of football. So anyway, my predictions for this season in football at the University of Kansas are as follows. I believe that they will win 1 game. At least. And I wouldn't be too surprised if it's Texas Tech. Because they're not doing too well. And they feel like, even though it feels like they've lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have lost, because right now, unlike last year, there's an interesting phenomenon in the Big 12 in that Kansas isn't the only bad team this year. There are two other teams that are 2-4 and 0-3 in the Big 12 right now. There's Kansas, Texas Tech, and Iowa State. I think Iowa State is a better team than their record shows. I think Texas Tech is about as good of a team as their record shows, and I think Kansas is maybe a little one win better than the record would show. And that is in specific reference to Texas, wherein if Charlie Weiss hadn't been the coach against Texas, I think they would have won that game. It was interesting seeing all of the last week. A bunch of former KU players came out in support of Coach Bowen because he played at KU back, I think, in the early '90s, maybe the late '80s. Anyway, there were a bunch of like KU players, I guess, at the game last week, and they all like stood in the end zone, and they were all wearing like the letter jackets and stuff, and that was cool. I like the idea of there being some sort of a pride in the program. Returning that, because there is something to be proud of in KU football. I mean, they've had good teams before. I don't even care what's going on in the game right now. I'm winning by 4 touchdowns. It's weirdly therapeutic to beat a team by 4 touchdowns. Can we make it 5 touchdowns? I don't know. I'm probably going to do the sportsmanlike thing and at least allow the clock to run down. But if I get close to the end zone, I'm not going to, take a knee. Unless we get underneath an hour. Or a minute, sorry. I think I still have my essay that I wrote about the candle. That's probably the worst thing I've ever written in my entire life. I remember getting like a 4 out of 9 on the AP grading scale for that essay. Oh, shit. Well. I mean, that may well be the worst thing I ever wrote. Because I was like trying to assign some emotion to this stupid candle. And like, I didn't care about the damn candle. I was just like, oh man, this essay is due this week. It's due on Wednesday. Right now it's Sunday. I'm gonna watch this. I was at church and I was paying attention to a candle. And I was like trying to fit in all this religious imagery and stuff. And it just, it was nothing worked. That may have been the worst. That was just... Ugh. One of these days I'm just going to read that all on Sports Today. And you're all going to have to laugh at how stupid I was. But I know that, like, if I'm in a situation like that again, I'm probably going to do and another touchdown, just because I can. Virginia Tech's mascot just looks creepy, man. This is also the first one to... it wasn't the first game to have the mascots, actually. 2002 had some mascots. I remember they had like Albert Gator. They had Sebastian the Ibis. And I think they had Willie Wildcat, too. But they modeled a lot of the mascots in this game. You can play as some of them. You can't play as either of the Jayhawks, but that's not my problem. I should do that. That's a weird thing they added in this game. They picked some of the weirdest mascots to use. They had like the Wildcat from Northwestern. Maybe it was just teams that were good at that time. Like the Houston Cougar and the BYU Cougar, and I don't know, they were different Cougars. Yeah, the Houston's Cougar doesn't have a third, like, forefinger. Or whatever. I don't know, they had part of its finger cut off, allegedly, is the story. Which is why Houston's little sign thing is 2 fingers, like the index and the middle finger up, and then the third finger down, and then the pinky finger up. If you want to make that sign for yourself right in front of your face at home, I will also point out that Wichita State uses that sign, and I don't know if it's unironic or not. I'm just throwing in random trivia right now because I'm winning this game out loud. This is what happens when I'm good at this game, and what happens when I'm bad at this game is I'm just silent. But it was a heartbreaking way to lose that last game. That might be the most heartbreaking way I've ever lost a stupid video football game. No, actually, last week I lost a game in NCAA 2003. Texas Tech against Ole Miss, because I was playing through a season with Texas Tech. I go up like 14-0. And they come back and make the score like 17 to... no, they come back and make the score like 21 to 17. No, they make the score 21 to 20. That's how the story goes. Okay, I just remembered it. 21 to 20. I am 15 yards away from the end zone. 5 seconds left. I call a timeout, and I'm like, I'm going to make a field goal. We're going to win this game against Mississippi. And I end up kicking the field goal wide right from like 15 yards away, like a freaking chip shot. End up losing the game. And ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Tech Hokies have won the Black Diamond Trophy, ladies and gentlemen. So, that's how it goes. Using the same strategy that I used when I was 7 years old to ensure that I got a trophy. Pick a team that's going to beat the other team. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Sports of the Day.